I mean, it was even more, hit me even more strongly. So, I mean, you're a first-time filmmaker, and when you watch the film, it feels like a journey. It feels so easy, as if you've kind of stumbled into the scenes. But I can see that it's a very well-crafted film, very well thought out, the scenes. Um, and especially how, see, Iranian cinema is, you hear only mainly about men in thing, but the way you foregrounded the voices of women, I think, touched me deeply. Your entry into this project through Farrokhzad's poetry is very, very evocative and very beautiful. So just wondering about Happy Alleys, the title, and if you could tell us how it comes from her poem, if you could talk about that. Sorry, I'll ask a few questions and then open it out to the audience.
Um, You're right when you say that there's so many men. When we think of Iranian cinema, especially the new wave and people making films after the formation of the Islamic Republic in 1979, where there was so much of, do's and don'ts. We call it the modesty codes that was imposed on women mostly, men too. So it became very difficult for women to actually. Make films, like take active roles. Even when they were appearing on screen, they had to be heavily censored, like things like you cannot laugh loudly, you cannot, you only this much of the neck should show, and just the palm, and you can't cycle, and you can't sing, obviously, and you can't even like touch a male co-actor, so and so on and so forth. So in this situation, it was so difficult to see women filmmakers, especially in the 90s and around the 80s and the 90s, make films. So that was very glaring from the beginning. And I did look for women filmmakers in Iran, and I did find there are women filmmakers making films in Iran, like Manija Hekmat and Tehmina Milani and Samira Makmalbaf. She doesn't stay. She lives in exile right now. The whole Makmalbaf family live in London now. They are exiled out after 2005. So it was hard, even though women spoke to me, because the crackdown on women is even harder, like more. They didn't, they weren't so easy about being filmed. But for me, all of this didn't matter so much, because my point of entry and inspiration was Forough, who historically inspired this generation of men to find a way to express political thought through film by using the indirectness of poetry. So that is what is so special about the Iranian new wave. I hope some of you, I hope you can watch some films from the new wave, films of Panahi, Kiarostami Makhmalbaf, and many others actually. You'll see that there is a deep inspiration that's taken from poetry, and people like Kiarostami actually quote Forough, like you saw in the clip that I used. Makmal Baf also is deeply inspired by Forough. Sohrab Sepehri is this other poet also. Among the modern poets, they are quoted because poetry opened up that space which censorship closed. Because in poetry, you can be indirect, you can be
Allude to
vague.
something and
Yeah,
not say
and
it
yet,
specifically.
yeah, you don't need to say it directly, but you still say it.
Like
So,
the Happy Alleys poem. Can you
yeah,
recite it
yeah.
for us in
Yeah,
Farsi?
I'm not the best at reciting Persian poetry. There are some Iranians in the house today. I'm so happy. I think, please forgive me if I make mistakes. Also, I'm doing this for the first time, reciting a part of this poem actually in Persian. So it's called The Gift, and in Farsi it's called Hediye. I'll recite it in Farsi and then maybe English. So she says, من از نهایت شب حرف میزنم، از نهایت تاریکی. اگر به خانه من آمدی، برای من ای مهربان چراغ بیاور و یک دریچه که از آن Be ezdeham kuche ye khoshbakt bengaram. Um, so it's a small poem, but Kuche Ye Khoshbakt translates as Happy Alleys, and the Persian title is Be Kuche Ye Khoshbakt, which is two-word Happy Alleys, which I've borrowed from this poem by Forough, which is called Gift, where she's just basically, I'll actually not explain and just read out the English. It's how the film begins also. She says, I speak out of the depth of the night, and out of the depth of darkness I speak. If you come to my house, friend, bring me a lamp and a window I can look through at the crowd in the happy alley. So the lamp and the window is the gift.
So that is the gift that you carry when you
Yeah.
make the film. That's the sense one gets as a viewer, as the audience, where you see three things either through Panahi's car, or you use roots to kind of open your gaze and let us into another world. Like this whole Mecca of the nose job. I mean, I think that was a fantastic scene that really brought about. There's so many scenes, the whole thing of censorship, so many scenes that are really interwoven into the narrative. How did that happen? Did you have to kind of, because documentaries, I know that it's supposed to be kind of capturing reality, but also you have to make things happen, right? You have to fix up meetings with people. And so, how was the whole process for you in the making? You filmed over how many years, and how did these scenes with Panahi? Fantastic. You really enter the film with him. I especially really like the spectacle case, that spectacle thing where you want him to film you while you're singing, but so he's a director, no? He's directing even your shots, so that's fantastic. So
Yeah, the
how
thing
did
with
these?
Panahi is that he was banned from officially filmmaking, for those who do not know, in 2009 because he tried to film the green movement, the huge protests that he spoke about. And he and Mohammad Rasulov were officially banned, and he spent time in prison as well. So, he's officially banned, but, he finds people like me or like Aida, the little girl who was in White Balloon in his first film, and the neighbors that you see who were walking the streets, who he also cast in Taxi. So he finds people from around him to tell his story even when he's not allowed to. So I soon became that person also. So you cannot make a director, a filmmaker, or a storyteller stop telling stories. And often when you are not allowed to do it directly, you'd literally, like him, find the nearest people around you and make them tell your story the way you'd like to, or the story of your country, or the story of your reality. So that's what Panahi did. So even though he was censored, he is censored, and he's not allowed to, he finds people from his life to talk about things that affect him and affect Iran and the world. So he was making a film actually. And it's interesting to note that in 2023 February, after Iran went through a lot, after the death of Masa Amini and the huge protests that happened, Panahi was taken in prison again, and he was, I think, for 6 months in prison, and then he started a hunger strike, and only after that they released him. At that time, Berlinale picked up the film. And it was really heartbreaking for us because I couldn't show him my final cut. But then, like, with the close people in the team, we were thinking, someone said, but don't worry, he's chuckling in prison because even though his film is not at Berlinale, a film about him is in Berlinale. So it's literally like, I think he's one of the biggest collaborators in this film. Yeah.
Lucky you.
Yeah, lucky me. Truly lucky and
I
blessed.
have more questions, but if somebody in the audience wants to ask any, yeah. Can you reduce this?
There's someone here.
Thank you very much. It was really beautiful. I have three questions.
Yeah.
Firstly, how long did it take for you to learn Farsi, and where did you learn Farsi? Secondly, how safe or unsafe was it for you to do these interviews and for the people whom you met to speak very openly with you? And the third question, I hope you remember all these three questions.
But you have to remind me.
Okay, the
I
first
have a bad
question was
memory.
where and when and how long did it take for you to learn Farsi?
Okay, so can I answer this?
Yeah.
So I learned from this wing, the language wing of Tehran University, which is called Dehkhoda, which is literally the best place to learn Persian from. And there are these different levels. So I officially learned up till intermediate. Because I mean, I couldn't go back and learn because there's a certain amount of monitoring that happens, and I wasn't very comfortable with it. But my learning continues, and my spoken Farsi is really good because within 10 days of learning, going to school, I started filming, and the sequences with Mohammad Shirvani and the drill sequence and a lot of the talking happens within like the first 10 days. So I think being Indian really helped because as an Indian I know Bengali, which is my mother tongue. I understand Urdu quite a lot, and Hindi as well. So and all of this is, I mean, you feel the presence of all of these languages in Farsi because it is one of the roots of these languages. So in total, officially, I learned only for 3 months in school, but I still learn, and I think I'm
it's
getting
amazing.
better.
I mean, khayli mamnoon, khayli khoob. I mean, I've been to Iran twice, and I think it's a beautiful country. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Second question is, how safe or unsafe was it for you to meet these people and for them to speak very openly with you?
I didn't think about safety any more than I think of safety in India. I feel it is pretty much the same. Of course, being in a place like Iran, I was very careful of following rules. So if you see towards the end, my hand automatically goes towards my scarf, which falls off for every woman. You know, it keeps falling off. It's not natural, I guess, to put a scarf that way all the time. But then I was very careful of my, being very proper with my hijab and maintaining decorum in public places because I didn't want to be caught for the wrong reasons because I was making a film in an underground manner. So I was very careful. So I didn't feel unsafe. Towards the end, as my Farsi got better, people considered me to be Iranian because I don't look very different either. And when that happened, a lot of, like you see the guy, the small, like the teenage guy, not even a teenager, maybe he's 10 or 11, he just passes by the bike with his bike and he says, why is your scarf not on your head? These things kept happening. And that just got me annoyed like it gets everyone else annoyed in Iran. So there was this certain amount of vigilance I felt. Like the eyes of the coffee advertisement, if you remember that shot that keeps opening and closing, and it's in the highway. And when I saw the shot, I freaked out because it really felt very Orwellian. It felt like someone is constantly watching you. So I constantly felt watched. But I also felt safe in many ways because of the family that I made and the friends that I've made. And these people that you see in the film are truly family to me, and they protected me in so many ways. So I wouldn't say feeling unsafe was one of the things that I'd take back from my emotions and experience in Iran. I felt a lot of love and I felt protected.
Yeah. And the last question is, after having made this film, do you think you might be able to go back? Is it possible, do you think? Because
I'd have to apply for a visa and check. If they give me a visa, I think I'll go back. But I wouldn't go back right now because just, I don't know, I don't think I'd feel very safe about going back right now. But maybe, yeah, inshallah, when the regime falls. Yeah.
But being an outsider, there was no censorship that you had to do, unlike how it is in India now. Right? Yeah.
Okay, hey, Sreemoyee over here. First of all, like, I'm jealous that you could call Panahi your family. First of all, like, a question, but before that, this is also my second viewing. I caught it on Mubi with my dad. So I actually wanted to message you on Insta, but then I saw that you're okay coming over here. So yeah, my dad also is a person who watches Iranian movies, like from the pre-Islamic Revolution, like The Cow and all. It's one of his favorites. And whenever the IFFK happens, he always goes and watches all the Iranian movies until the Seed of the Sacred Fig. So while watching the movie, he said that it's like he was rewatching all the movies that he watched in Iran, like going through time. So hats off, Sreemoyee. That was such a powerful documentary. So yeah, even like the shot where Panahi, you introduced Panahi, and my dad was like, "That's just taxi Tehran." Yeah, the inspiration is so beautiful. Like, it was such a visually stunning, really brilliantly made movie. So. My question is, this is also something that even I also think while watching Iranian movies. So yeah, also one small thing, even for me, cinema started with Children of Heaven. So when I was 13, I watched Children of Heaven, and that's when I felt like, okay, cinema can be something more than just a protagonist, antagonist, villain fight. So yeah. So my question was, even in terrestrial versus or like the new wave, when the movie comes to us, when we watch the movie, we see that it's an intensely political movie. And there's no hiding of the fact. It's intensely political, it's very anti-regime, it's very anti-Islamic revolution. But how do these movies come out? Or like, what is the filmmaker, did you get an answer to that? How do a filmmaker approach making such movies? How cautious are they? Or like, aren't they afraid of like, even that's what happened with the director of Sacred Fig, right? He had to come to Germany. So yeah, what was
Yeah, so this is it's a long answer, but I'll try to make it concise. So that censorship happens in many stages. One is when you have a script. So first, that has to be passed by the Ministry of Islamic Guidance. Only if it is passed can you film. If and there are a lot filmmakers manage ways to bypass and write a script which would be passed and then make their own film. So but when they do it, like let's say Rasulov, or when they work with permits, if they do, Rasulov doesn't work with permits because he's banned, but other filmmakers like Manije Hekmat and other people who used to at least work within this system, they would maybe take liberties. Right now, the situation of Iranian cinema is really bad. When I was there, the kind of cinema that was shown in theaters in Iran was only either propaganda or slapstick comedies, with no trace of politics in it. Only these were, or films which were propaganda of the Iran-Iraq war. Taking the position of Iran. So these are the only three kind of films that were shown in theaters. I'm very sure if theaters are still running and functioning now, this is what is shown. For people like Rasulov and Panahi, they bypass all of this. There is no one they can ask permits to. So they go underground, they make their films with a cast of neighbors, family members, people around them, and they make the film and sell it, and send it off to film festivals like Berlinale, Cannes, Locarno, Venice, these festivals, and they often get picked up. And this is how Iranian film, Kurosami has also done it. So for the longest time, Dariush Meherjui did it. So these filmmakers started this tradition, and this is the only way that these films go out of the country. And it takes years for the films to come back to Iran through black market. So if you watch Taxi, there's a sequence in which Panahi gets his films back via the DVD, person who sells the DVD, and he gets his film. So this is a very, it's complicated, but Iranians themselves don't know what Panahi is making, because maybe they'll get the film that's made in 2015, they'll get it in 2020 or something. So there's a gap in viewership. Yeah. And people like Ali Asghari and all, they are right now, the condition is that if you are, if let's say Cannes picks up your film, then you will be getting a travel ban. So none of the filmmakers can actually go to a place like Cannes anymore, because that is when the regime bans your travel, and often, like in case of Rasulov, imprisons your actors. So it's really precarious. It's really hard, and it's getting really hard. yeah, it's just getting harder. Yeah. Pardon?
Hello.
This is not scripted. This is a documentary. I didn't ask for permissions.
Hello.
Yeah.
Do they allow this documentary of yours to be screened in Iran?
No, no, of course not.
That's what I want. So would it reach in the black market then?
I think it's there already. I
Oh.
don't know who's asking. I think it's there. Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't see who asked the question. But right, yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I love this documentary. I also watched it for the second time. And I think it's such a life-affirming tribute to Iranian cinema. It also reminded me of a documentary that Wim Wenders made about Japan, particularly Tokyo.
I love it.
And in his experience, in his documentary, he also talks about how the Tokyo that he saw through his the filmmaker that he looked up to, which was, I think, Yasujiro Ozi, it was very different from the Tokyo that he was experiencing. So there were similarities and there were differences, and there was that contradiction. So my first question was, did you experience that when you visited Iran? Like the Iran that you saw through the films of Kiarostami and Panahi, was that different or similar from your own experience? So that's my first question.
Can I answer that,
Yeah.
please? Yeah. Because I'll forget. See, it's very interesting. In this case, in case of Iran, the perception of Iran that most of us have, like as lay people, is the perception of Iran that comes through conventional news, which is BBC, where, you know, everyone is a victim or it's a villainous country, you know. So this is the image of Iran that reaches us through media, news and media. Especially when when I started when I fell in love with Iran and Iranian cinema, I was 21. I'm much, much, much older now. But especially then, things were not as open as it is now, you know, through Instagram and social media and Twitter, everything. So this was the conventional idea of Iran. But my initiation to Iran was different. It happened through poetry and cinema, poetry of Forough and cinema of the new wave. So, of course, I mean, the reason why I fell in love with Iran was because of how differently the filmmakers, let's say, living in this villainous place, in quotes, finds ways to preserve hope in their stories. How do you do that? And how is it that their cinema is so life-affirming? You know, as a 21-year-old, I was really, really curious about it. And how is Forough still finding a way to talk about her own feminine desires when women are just not allowed to? So my initiation was already happening through this. And which was from the beginning at loggerheads with the idea of Iran that the world got. So that is why I wanted to go and I wanted to meet these artists. So it was already from day one, it was very different.
Thank you. And the second question, so poetry is like a thread throughout the film, but also song. Like I felt like what moved me, particularly in the last scene, but also as you were singing throughout, was just how singing and song is a form of resistance, personal and political. And was this a choice that you made like from the very start, or was it something in the process that you saw that music and song can really be such a powerful way of conveying what was happening, particularly how women were resisting or are resisting the patriarchy?
So I have been singing since the age of 4. And music is second skin to me. I think I express best through music. And when I went to Iran for the first time in 2015, I did not have any idea that women are not allowed to sing publicly. Even much later, it took me a month in to really understand why is everyone asking me to sing publicly. And then I found out that because they haven't heard a woman publicly sing for over 44 years since the formation of the Islamic regime. So that felt like an attack. It felt personal. Suddenly it was like a mix of so many feelings that I don't think I can put into words. But it felt like I can sing, and with me, whenever I sing, and women cannot sing there, but every time I began singing, people around me joined. And towards the end, you see a whole class full of people, like girl students, you know, they're joining. So slowly music opened up this, or this act of singing, if I say, opened up this space of forbidden expression. So it was very liberating for Iranians and for me. So yeah, so and I discovered, you know, when I went to Iran, that there were two threads of poetry and cinema. But there was no thread of music when I went, and that's why it is unscripted, because in a documentary you just let yourself flow, especially in a film like this. I had no idea about Iran before I went to Iran. There was no way I could have done my location recce. The first time I went to Iran, the shots are exactly, the most of 70% of the shots are from my first 3 months in Iran, which should have been my location recce, but I didn't have that privilege and time. I didn't know I could go back. So I had no idea about the music, you know, that music would become such an important part of the film. But because I sing, I naturally started picking up these songs. And this song that keeps recurring, which is called Sultan-e-Galbhak, it constantly reminded me of Do Lafzon Ki Hai Ye Dil Ki Kahani, which we've like grown up listening to, and I knew that song by heart. So it felt like I know this song, but I just don't know the lyrics. So I kept, and it's such a popular love song, and anyone from the age of 5 to 90 would know the song, you know, and every time you would sing in front of them, they'd just like happily join in. And there was no way, even if a teacher tells you not to sing, or police comes and tells you to stop, you would just not be able to stop, because that song is like that. It's addictive. So that's why when I started singing, I didn't know any of this. And I just started singing innocently because I do. And this is my singing led to this other thread opening up in the film. And I'm very grateful it did, because from cinema and poetry, it opens up to music, which is also the third form of expression, because the film is about expression and how we preserve expression despite censorship and repression around. And music naturally became a part of that.
Sreemoyee used to teach at St. Joseph's, and some of her students are here. And one of them asked outside, "Will you be singing?" So I think now's the time.
Sure, but as you can see, my voice is pretty bad today. Yeah, sure, I'll have some water and it'll be better. No, it's just a cold, I think. What do I sing? Again? Okay. So even if I sing badly, it's okay, right? Because this is an intimate space. Where are my Persian friends? Do you want to join in? Okay, please join in from there. I was thinking of singing Jane Mariam because her name is Mariam, the other song in the film. Okay, but Sultan-e-Galbhak it is. ये दिल मीगे बेराम बेराम ये दिलम मीगे نارم نارم طاقت نداره دلم بی تو چه کنم پیشش که زیبا خیلی کوچیکه دنیا با یاد تو هم هر جا ترکت نکنم سلطان قلبم تو هستی دروازه های دلم را شکستی پیمان یاری به قلبم تو بستی با من پیوستی चर्चा बरियाद दीगे न बंदम दिलमरा सरशार मज़आरज़ू तमन्ना ए यार ज़ीबा. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, this is such a eternal song. Like people don't have enough of
But
it.
when you sing it, the whole film flashes by, when
yeah.
you sing the song. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And they were joining you actually.
Thank you for joining. It's so special that you did. Yeah.
Hello. So when I was studying in St. Joseph, I remember that we had a world cinema class taken by Shabin sir, and we had a portion called Iranian cinema, and Shabin sir told us, Sreemoyee ma'am is going to come and teach you Iranian cinema. So I remember ma'am teaching us Iranian cinema, and she played a small clip from this film, and immediately me and my friends, we were literally like, I would say I was actually tearing up because I was just so amazed like how a person is so dedicated and like into it. And so my question is very simple. I am so excited to see you as a filmmaker, ma'am. So what is next? Like what is your next project? Because I'm already excited. And I also remember I waited literally 2 years for watching this film. And I also remember the minute it came on Mubi, I was like, I don't care what happens. I'm gonna get the subscription and watch it. So I am so excited. I just want to know what's next. What's the next project as a filmmaker?
So this is the attack of the Josephites. I just want to say I just finished this. Let me be, but for a bit. No, but yeah. I want to. I was just telling Sunanda also that the film that I have slowly started is also a documentary, which was the first film that I wanted to make in my life, even before Iran. But then I was 20 or I think 19, and I just didn't know how to do it, and maybe I still don't know how to do it. But it's a very personal. It's a even more personal film. It's a film about how do I say it? It's a film about home and music and the relationship of me and my mother, and tracing lost family, finding love and music in what family you have, and a lot about the city of Calcutta. So it's as home, as close to home as it gets. I live in Calcutta, so that's it. It's hard to articulate. But I think I should prepare how to say it right. But it's in the very early stages of realization and early development and research. So yeah.
So, Forough Farrokhzad's House is Black was one of the first films to kind of blend fiction and non-fiction, right?
Yeah.
And kind of setting the trend for Iranian cinema.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful,
Yeah,
powerful film. Yeah.
It's
amazing.
it's truly a seed.
Yeah.
It totally inspired, and it's a documentary.
Yeah.
It blends definitely the way the voiceover is used and the residents of this leper colony.
Yeah.
Uh,
The way it's shot also.
yeah.
So, I mean, that seed is really nice and
Yeah.
powerful in your film of
Yeah.
poetry and
Yeah,
your work.
because New Wave, the most special thing about New Wave is how it treads very delicately on, between fiction and non-fiction.
Yeah, that's what
Like you'd watch Taxi and you'd think, is it scripted? And like you'd watch, there's another film by Kiarostami called Five, and you think if that really happened, where you watch the sea pass, waves pass over a log, and for a long time, and finally the log shatters, and that's the moment. But he actually placed a combustible inside the log, so yeah. And for the longest time, I thought that he just waited, but it was, he writes about it. He had put a combustible. Yeah.
Hi. It's a very commendable job to go into that extraterrestrial terrain and just make a good documentary. Congrats on my behalf. I just want to ask, you went there, you right now mentioned that it is how difficult for the movie makers to, make a film over there publicly. So, were you aware or calculated while taking the shots? Because you know that after returning and editing and just releasing it, whatever, uh, were you aware of the fact that if this movie like reaches to the Iranian, government or whatever it is, the people who you showed in the movie might get affected again?
Yeah, so this is why it took 7 years for me to finish this film, because I was waiting for most of my uh, people in the film, actually. Like, if you see, mostly the women, to leave Iran. So most of them are out of Iran. Aida, Meena, Genus, they all, Aida is a neurosurgeon. She lives in Canada. Meena lives in Turkey. She's moved out. And Genus is finally finishing off her thesis. She started it. It takes time, guys, to finish a thesis, really. Uh, but yeah, she's finally finishing it off, and she's worked on all of this poetry and cinema and women. So all most of these people have moved out, and Panahi and Nasreen, they are they are dissidents. Anyway, they're creative dissidents. Nasreen is a human rights activist, so they are in and out of jail all the time. So I wasn't so worried about what the film would impact in their lives. But I was worried about others, but mostly everyone's moved out, and I was waiting for the move to happen. And about risks, calculated strategy, if you see that there are not too many shots outside, mostly except Panahi, the talking sequences are indoors. So I shot within the controlled situation where I went inside and the houses of filmmakers and filmed there, and which should also give you, for me, it talks about a kind of safety, whereas the shots outside for me give a feeling of constantly being watched and this uneasiness and restlessness. So that's how I thought of the inside and the outside, which is a huge thing in Iran. And Panahi's car becomes very important because he is a filmmaker who makes a lot of films in that position, where his car basically gives him that position where he can sit inside and watch the world and not necessarily be watched directly by the world. So that's how he makes films, in an underground way. So these were the creative decisions that I took, and also because it was harder to film outside. Yeah.
Okay, I think we have to end. We have a closing time. Thank you so much, PIC, Nazneen, and sorry, I don't know the projectionist's name. Thank you. And thank you, Sri, for such a wonderful film and for coming here and being part of this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Thank you all for coming. Yeah.